All right, we got Thomas Phillips, CEO of D2C SEO agency. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Second time lucky.
yeah. We got better luck this time. No internet issues.
Absolutely.
Always something with technical. Yeah, I really loved your story. We kind of chatted a few times, but I love kind of hearing entrepreneurial journeys and kind of it's like a hero's journey from a movie and whatnot. I think it can really level up too. But yeah, could you love to hear your kind of background? You've been like an entrepreneur since day one, and you really like figured out SEO from an early age. But could you just kind of share kind of where you started and some of your kind of career path?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I started my first proper business. I did all the typical entrepreneurial route with things, selling candy at school and washing cars and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then, yeah, at the age of 13, I started my first online company. It was called Vision Decks. It was basically like miniature finger skateboards, 3-ply wooden versions, made them in my dad's garage. Um, Yeah, and basically started selling them online. So we sold to 39 different countries in the first year. And it just got to the point where it was so busy that I didn't know how to hire anyone. I didn't know like what to do. Like, how do you expand from here? So I just shut the company down in the end. But really, that was my first taste of like online sales. Most of it was coming directly from SEO, from Google. Because essentially I was like, well, how is everyone else getting traffic? How is everyone else getting sales? Well, surely if you're at the top of Google and people are searching for it, then searching for your product, then they want this, you sell this, great, you make a sale. So that and forums was like my first introduction into actual ecom at the time. And I'm 30, coming up to 34 now, so it was a good few years ago. So it was literally just like a PayPal button on a HTML table website that I just built in, what would it have been, Dreamweaver at the time. Can't show my age now. I think it's Dreamweaver. We used to build websites in with CSS. Anyway, so essentially that's really where I started with things. And then over the years, I've just had so many different businesses and um, built like massive affiliate sites. We've had a bunch of different ecom brands. We've built, scaled, and sold 17 different companies at this point, um, all through SEO. We run like zero paid traffic until our last company, Pet Portraits, which we then also exited out of. And then it got to the point where so many people have been asking me across my whole career, like, please do SEO for us. Always said no. I don't want a boss. We do it for our own brands only. And then we finally gave in, opened the doors to D2C SEO agency. That was like almost 3 years ago at this point, and then it's been freaking awesome. It's been way better than I expected. Yeah, now we help actual D2C e-commerce brands also scale from organic search and now AI search or GEO, AEO, whatever you want to end up calling it. But it's been absolutely awesome. So that's where we are today. And there's been a bunch of investments and other stuff in the middle. I don't know if you want to get into non-internet related.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. I love the business side of it. I love the marketing and like your route always it seems like was like SEO is like the driver, which is
Yes.
amazing. Like you built all these businesses off of like real sound good SEO. But yeah, I imagine that had to been a huge difference in transition of going of like we're just going to build our own businesses up, scale them, and then exit to now you're in an agency, which is purely a service based business. But what's that transition like? It's like you're doing great in it, you love it, but what's that transition been like of going from like building businesses to building an agency, which is a much different type of business than like a straight ecom
Yeah,
business versus selling products and scaling?
absolutely. Yeah, like a huge amount of it. Olivia, my wife, is co-founder and COO, and she's been amazing at like extracting SOPs out of my brain because essentially it was just like me and the team, and all we did was SEO. Like we didn't have to do it for anyone else. We didn't have to have any reporting because we knew that basically 100% of the traffic was all coming from organic search. So it's been very interesting to, with an agency, have to operationalize everything. And everything has to be done in a certain way so it's replicable for every single client that comes in. Obviously, we have a completely different strategy for every single client because every website is different. It's totally bespoke. But in terms of the actions that it takes, is very, very operational. So I'm very lucky that she is a fantastic integrator and operator from that point of view, which has been amazing. So that's really been the biggest difference, is that instead of us just focusing on just marketing, it's now like, oh, wow, we have to build out everything else, not just working on one or two sites, but now working on many, which has
Yeah,
been
because you're going
awesome.
from working on one business, scaling one business, focusing on one brand, one product, or maybe you had a couple at the time too. Now you got to operate that across multiple clients that are all in different industries, different businesses. And in order to scale that, it comes down to systems and processes. Just from being on
Absolutely.
the other side, which is on paid media, we have the exact same experience. It's like the system and the process is the same, but the execution of it, because the brand's different, client's different, the audience targeting is different, the fundamentals, the details are different, but the overall process is the same. Is that what you kind of found through the SEO process of building the SEO agency? Is you need to build
Yeah.
these high level systems, but leave enough room for it to be specialized or focused to a specific brand?
100%. I think that final point was a really big one for us, because at the start we were like, well, yeah, of course we can do SEO for a roofing company or for a SaaS company or whatever else, because that's always what we've done, but we just owned the businesses ourselves. And then what we quickly realized was actually the processes for a local SEO versus e-commerce versus SaaS are totally different. So what are we best at? We're best at ecom. We enjoy it. That's what we love the most, especially direct to consumer. And it was essentially like over the last few years is like picking the lane and then really understanding this is what we're freaking epic at. So that's really been a really, really big part of it, is niching down and working out.
Yeah. You evolved from like, we'll do SEO for anybody, any clients on takers, to we're really just focused on D2C ecom brands because that's where our bread and butter is.
Yeah, and a really, really, really big point of it as well is that we found it so difficult to track. Like, let's say like a roofing company as an example. Pretty much every roofing company seemingly uses a different CRM, a different set of tracking.
Mm.
They do things in completely different ways. Some have a telephone team, some don't, and it's at the point where it's like so freaking difficult to track. Where is organic search sitting in this whole thing? Like, they just don't know. And we don't know either. And GA4 is so unreliable and inaccurate. Um, so really that's why we sat down with the co-founders of Triple Whale, specifically third-party attribution for e-commerce brands. The top brands use it. I'm sure you guys have come across it and use it. But then we basically built a full organic search and now an AI search dashboard that tracks all of our KPIs inside of that. So now we can actually finally tie attributable revenue and 15 or so other KPIs that we have directly to our organic search efforts, which is epic. So finally,
And
like
that's all
like the
built
paid ads guys.
within Triple Whale.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So we've built that directly with their co-founders because it just wasn't available before. We didn't have the luxuries like the you paid ads team do, which is a pain in the ass, but
Yeah,
we'd never
we have a
needed
lot
it,
more of the direct integrations and traffic, right? Like you can
Exactly.
see because of the link system that the traffic's coming directly in. But, more often than not, what I see over and over again is paid and SEO really working together,
Mm,
especially when you go outside of just the lowest direct funnel traffic, your like hottest meat buyers, which is generally only like 5% of any audience in any given time. Is how do you still influence the rest of the audience, a bigger pool of your ideal customers, influence them enough to where eventually they go into the buyer pool. And that's through other, you can attract them through other paid acquisition channels to influence them to
absolutely.
eventually then search and then retarget and then bring back. And I think all of those things working together ends up being the best marketing plan because you have to influence different
1,000%.
buyers at different times.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've been a lot, as I said, we exited 17 different brands that I've looked at so many brands that have been for sale as well. So I've seen both sides of the coin. And when it's just a brand that's only done paid, the multiple that they'll get assigned to it will be a hell of a lot lower than if they have a decent chunk coming from organic search or even um, organic social, as well as because you have an additional, not just an additional set of traffic, but one that's that's independent of ads. So obviously,
Reliable. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
reliable. Yeah, yeah. If the ads get turned off, your ad account gets banned, or you have a bad month, whatever, it picks up the slack, which is
That and
what
ad
investors
costs
want.
are always rising. Like Facebook, TikTok, Google ad costs have continuously rise over time. So you don't have a fixed fee. I'm sure there's some variable costs in SEO still, but I think that's a big issue for a lot of brands is their margin then ends up getting pinched because if they're too
Very
reliant
true.
on paid traffic, you have this increasing in costs that you can't control and then that eats away at your profitability. So you have to rely on either email or you need organic or you need organic search or social helping fulfill some sales. Because if you're just relying on paid, I completely agree. I think you're going to burn out eventually. And it's going to
Yeah.
be really hard to just scale off of a one paid traffic channel because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really, again, the great thing about SEO. Like, yes, sometimes it does take a few months. The bigger clients that we take on, we can get way quicker results for, which I absolutely love because we love to see results quick. But the great thing is that, yeah, like with ads, obviously, as the costs rise, as you spend more, you're obviously making more, but your margin is still there, and potentially it's going to get squeezed as the wider you open up the net. But obviously, with SEO, your cost is pretty much flat and your traffic compounds and increases. So like the gap that you can get on it is absolutely monstrous. Like one of our biggest affiliate sites that we had a good few years ago, we're at 97% profit margin across the entire company, including salaries, and we had about a 22-person team. It was just freaking nuts because we had no ad spend, but the income that we were making was nuts. So yeah, it's it's kind of crazy to think about, but it's just getting over that hump and knowing and understanding, okay, this is going to take a few months before it ROIs at this point. But on the flip side, from a paid ads perspective, like we're just starting to run paid ads now for our online TRT clinic, Field 30, and that is like it's going to be unprofitable for a while before you really crack the funnel, crack the ads, everything like that. Like we're going to be in the red for a while. So it's interesting, like some people's mindsets around ROI and how quickly it's going to make sales and actually make profit.
Yeah,
So,
both of them, you have to have a long-term vision and game plan.
mm,
That's why I wonder of like how much of that is like, is it brand building as well? Helps influence your search and your social. Like over time, can you build a bigger brand and more positive brand associations that help drive more search and social traffic. And then you have the iteration factor of can you continue to test and optimize your ad and then your landing page and then your sales process, all of those and your email sequence in order to drive more conversions and sales. But there's nothing that generally you turn it on day one and it starts and it works. Like I'm sure it happens occasionally, but if you find the right timing and everything, but most of the time it comes down to iterations. I'm sure it's the same in the SEO space, is that you have to continue to iterate on testing what search, and same thing in the paid world. You have to continue to test what ads, what audience, what channels, what landing pages work best in order to drive sales and conversions that work.
yeah, I mean, luckily, the great thing with SEO, which I've always loved, is that you can see obviously all the demand for any given keyword at any given time.
Yeah.
So we know for a fact, like if we rank first for this keyword that is a commercial or a transactional intent, that is going to get conversions. There's no two ways about it. So if it has 20,000 searches per month and the average order value of the client is $200 for that particular product, we know that we're going to make some serious cash
Yeah. Yeah.
for that,
It's
which
just
is
testing to
amazing.
get to that first position, right? You have to continue to figure out and tweak things in order to get to the top spot. Like, how much work is
Not a
there
whole
to
lot
get
of
to that top
tweaking.
spot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, the main thing is the compounding.
Mm,
So let's say, for example, like the top three websites on Google for that 20,000 search a month term, say they have 50 really high quality links going directly to that page, to the top three pages individually. So we now know, okay, we roughly need 50 or more really high quality links going to our specific, let's say, collection page. But then on top of that, we also then need to look at how much content do they have versus us? How much of an authority are they versus us? What is like their DR and DA versus ours? If ours is 20 and theirs is 50, we're going to need more links than them to rank up there. Otherwise, why would Google ever put you there? If you have more thumbs up and more references, which you can essentially view as links, then the higher the chance that Google's going to put you up there. Backlinks are still one of the biggest parts of the algorithm, whether they want to admit it or not. But it's the hardest part to get, which is why it has the biggest weight behind it. So it's really a case of compounding month on month on month.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
that's
a
the
lot of our
time factor, right? That's why it takes
yes,
3 months, 6 months, 9, 12 months in order to get that, is you need to compound over time all of those factors.
yeah, and a really really big differentiator between like it's going to take a year versus it's going to take a month is if the client already has those pages set up. So a lot of clients that we onboard, especially bigger brands, they already have thought about all of their collection pages and their categories, and they're already somewhat optimized. So our favorite thing is when there's a large SKU store and they come to us and a bunch of their biggest keywords are sat on like the second page, as an example. Like we know we can get you quick results, like
Quick
in
results
the
that way.
first one,
Yeah.
1 or 2 months,
Nice.
which is so much fun at
Yeah.
that point. But if they don't have any collection pages built out for those big keywords and they're not ranking, it's going to take way longer because Google has to really index the page first, then go, okay, is this better or worse than other ones? Then we need to compound the links over time. The, the time it takes extends a lot more
Mm.
versus an existing page that's ranking okay.
Yeah. Another question I had was like, have you seen or experienced of like maxing out for a brand or a traffic source from SEO? Like, is there a
Yes,
point where you're like, we can't get any more traffic for this? And is that just
yes.
generally just a niche problem where it's just like there's just not enough people searching for relevant content or keywords for this?
Absolutely. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head there, James. Yeah. It's basically like the total addressable market. Like
Yeah.
within certain niches, there's only a certain number of people actually searching for the keywords we want to go after. So it absolutely does hit a cap. And one thing that we've done before, which was a huge mistake, big learning lesson, it doesn't necessarily apply to e-commerce brands, which is good, but from an affiliate standpoint, content websites, we like dominated the niche in outdoor garden products. And then we were like, crap, we've basically like filled this now. We can't do any more. Why don't we try home as well? And then we kind of added this other section onto the site and added a bunch of other sections at the same time. And Google was just like, hold up, like you're no longer the expert for what you were originally the expert in. And that's when the site started to have some tough
Interesting.
times.
I
So
I would have
yeah,
thought and assumed that since you had authority in one category, it would have looked at that and been like, "All right, they could also be experts in this adjacent category." But that seems like
yeah,
that now not what happened. I would have assumed that would have happened, but that's not what happened. They downgraded your base site.
yeah, and I think it was just because we went too broad outside of like what it was all initially about. So let's say, you're talking about like ride-on lawnmowers as an example. We used to rank first for best ride-on lawnmower, like
Yeah,
$8,000 per sale, 8% commission. It was fantastic. And then if you start ranking for like best ironing boards, and you're like, what the like your website is named about like outdoors and stuff, and
yeah.
now you're trying to rank for this, like you're just getting too greedy
Got it. Yeah,
basically at
yeah.
that point.
It's not relevant, and they're all about, like, relevancy is high priority, right? So if you're not relevant
100%.
for something, then it's not gonna rank high.
Yeah,
What
and
would
and you'll rank a lot better. Sorry, James, you'll rank a lot better if you have a niche website versus
Mhm.
like going up against like Amazon. Like we
Sure.
can
Yeah,
outrank Amazon by having a niche website that has ton of content all about that specific topic and niche.
yeah. This might be that might be the answer to this, but what might going to be like somebody new starting out in e-com and is building a brand new website. Like, what are some foundational things they should do? Should they go super niche into one thing and just try to own one specific slice of the market? Like, what are some strategies if you're like, just boom, started a new e-com brand?
Great question. The first thing I do is keyword research and basically map out what 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 is the homepage going to rank for? What are the collection pages that I need? What are the products that are going to go into those collection pages? What could I rank those products for as well? What keywords would be associated to those? And then what blog content would I also need and want to build out? Essentially, like building that whole site architecture early on is so important. Because as I was saying before, if you don't have those pages built out and someone else has had them built out for a year, those have aged 1 year on yours. So they have a much higher chance of being able to rank a lot quicker as well as. And then another mistake that I've seen, not necessarily e-commerce brands do that much, it's more in the affiliate space, but they go so niche into like one very specific thing. And now you've pigeonholed yourself into that. Like if the product name is in the URL, once you rank for that, it's like, where do you go from here?
Yeah,
So
you're done. Yeah.
that becomes a little bit difficult. So, but really in the e-commerce space, it's all about building a brand at the end of the day. And I think that's definitely the biggest thing to lean on.
Yeah, I think that's where you get the long-term benefit from search and social is if you can build a legitimate brand rather than I think a lot of people starting out are just trying to get the quick sale, the quick traffic, and then have no long-term vision. And this is probably going to burn out.
Mm, for sure.
So you just to get back to kind of like your agency and stuff, like you built all these brands, right? And then scaled them up through SEO. And then you went to the agency space. What were the differences in terms of like, I assume you did SEO for your own agency in order to scale up traffic and leads and everything else like that. Was there any significant changes or was it all the same type of model that you did in order to generate leads and traffic for your own agency? Like, how did you build your agency's traffic up in order to get awareness and leads and all that?
Excellent question. Yeah. So we have not done a whole lot of SEO on our own site by any means. Basically, the keyword searches around SEO related terms are like so small. It's almost like, is there even an ROI to rank on that? And a couple of my friends have also attempted to rank for like the major big keywords like SEO in Miami as an example.
Yeah.
And they're like, we just don't see like great leads from it overall. Like you might get one in a needle in the haystack type thing. So for us, it's been really interesting. It's like, well, why wouldn't you rank your own site? Like certainly something we're working on, but not something we're putting a huge amount of effort into from that point of view. Our own internal brands, ecom brands, 100%. That's where we put a lot of effort into, obviously. But yeah, it's mainly from either other agency owners who I know, or other CMOs who I also know who, passing leads around or having recommendations. Another one is consultants who, consult for large D2C brands and stuff like that. So yeah, that's been one of the main things. And then also meta ads. So really understanding and learning how to drive traffic from meta, which has been a big eye opener, directly to a landing page with a VSL, learning how to do VSLs, learning how to do all this side of things, doing all the workflows and all, high level stuff in the back end. This has been a way bigger learning curve than I first anticipated. So it's taken a really, really long time to get to the point where, okay, we're actually getting some leads in now.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
basically, like, yeah, the B2B audience pool for search just wasn't there. And so that's where you went
Yeah,
more other forms of client acquisition for your agency,
absolutely. Yeah,
referral, network, partnerships, and then ads in order to drive the
absolutely.
traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, because if I end up speaking to someone in person at a conference, as an example, and I'm talking about, oh, here's all the SEO that we've done. Hey, let me show you these sites and stuff. Then it's like, all right, the trust is built. Great. How much is it? At that point, so it's so much better. And we also tried Google Ads going directly to the site, and it just was not profitable. Like I don't think we had one good lead, and we spent almost like $3,000 in a couple of weeks, and there wasn't
Yeah.
like one legit lead even coming in. So at that point, I was like, what if we invest a lot into SEO to try and get up to this point? Is it going to be worth it? Which is a really, really big thing that we sit down and look at initially when we have a call with a potential lead at the start. Is like, is SEO even worth it for you in the
Yeah.
first place? Like, are you
100%.
even in a position where it makes sense? Or my recommendation a lot to smaller brands is start on Google Ads first. Because if the site doesn't convert from Google Ads, sure as hell is not going to convert from SEO. Like, It's just
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good way to test out first, right? Because it's, similar traffic and you can just force your way up to the top with a smaller budget because you can test with almost any budget on Google search ads. Although again, it's the stop and go that you have to deal with ads is that it works, but you have to continue to pay for it if it does work.
yeah, yeah.
But
Absolutely.
yeah,
But it's a good way to test the site and
testing
test
that
a
for sure.
niche and
Yeah.
yeah, get
Yeah,
an MVP up.
I always tell people, like, you have to have the foundation of your business and your whole system set up before you start really acquiring traffic and going after traffic. So, do you have a
100%.
functional site and landing page and a really good offer, know exactly who you're targeting and what they're seeking, where they're hanging out online, where you can reach them, and then you can go to buying traffic because traffic's very expensive and it can eat up all your budget. You could spend all your budget on traffic acquisition alone. So if
Yeah,
you haven't tested it properly or built the kind of foundation of your brand and your strategy and your positioning, then paid ads is going to be a struggle as well. Although you can test things at a very, very small budget in order to get some momentum and figure out what's working, what's not working.
100%. Yeah, and I think a big part of it as well is like having operations in order, like operations and manufacturing. Like we took on a client who was this is a good couple of years ago. They were a lot smaller. We scaled them up. They started ranking first for a bunch of dog food related terms because they had very specific dog food that they were producing, and it got to the point where they had to pause with us because their operations couldn't keep up. They're like, "Hey, this is freaking awesome, but we need to reinvest back here because shit's hitting the fan." And now they've come back to us 11 months later, which is awesome. So now we can continue to compound for them, which is fantastic. Now that they've sorted out all their operational side of things, which is again why we like working with bigger companies that have a previous track record, as well as because we can continue to compound it. Because when you stop the compounding, it's kind of like pedaling up a hill on a bike in like a high gear. As soon as you stop and you don't change down gear, it's like, oh, God, that's
Yep.
difficult
Yep.
to get back up to speed. So it's really the same kind of thing. You'll coast for a bit and then you'll stop, and then it takes a lot of effort to get back there again. So yeah, the more you can keep on the compounding. Same thing with investing in stocks, S&P
Yeah.
side of
Yeah.
things. Dollar cost averaging is similar with SEO.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. What have you seen? What's kind of the foundational pieces of SEO that's been constant that hasn't changed? And then what's been some of the newer trends and happenings? Obviously, we kind of like the AI is obviously a huge one, but yeah, like what are like the new things you weren't doing a few years ago? And then what are like the staples that are like, here's the foundation SEO that's always going to make sense?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, the staples are really obviously content. If you don't have content on the site, Google can't understand what the page is about or what it needs to rank for. Obviously, backlinks and just links in general, having high quality links that are not spammy, because otherwise the site's going to go the opposite way, and just compounding that power over time. Um, and then the final one would be technical SEO. So, like, it does the site load quickly? Can Google navigate through? Make sure there's no JavaScript issues. There's so many errors that seem to come up every single month on Shopify stores, which is why we have a in-house dev that just works on every client's website when there's stuff that pops up and we get it fixed. So they're really the staples that still have not changed. I'd say one of the biggest changes that has happened, especially lately in terms of geo AO, AI search, whatever anyone wants to call it right now, is really creating like the source of truth pages, like brand hub pages, as an example. So now what we're starting to do is actually have interviews directly with our clients, asking very, very specific questions. We're then building that into brand hub, a brand hub page that is essentially the source of truth that has all the official information on the company, why it was built, what they're known for or what they want to be known for, their unique selling points, who started it, when, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're finding now is like ChatGPT is pulling directly from that source of truth information, mixing it in with other things to then really get a really good understanding and idea of the brand. Because if you think about it, if ChatGPT, as an example, had to try and go out and find scraps of information from 10 different sources, versus if it just goes directly to the official brand page on the official website, grabs all that info because it's already there, bam, it has a much higher chance of delivering that kind of content. So that's a really big piece of it. And then from there, we also use that interview for digital PR. We have a way bigger push on digital PR these days because, again, the likes of ChatGPT, they're looking, or it's looking at authoritative websites that it deems are authoritative. That's the big one. And then it's pulling, the unique selling points from that particular brand, mixing everything together, and then giving your answer from there. The other thing is comparison pages. We're working on a lot more. This brand versus this brand, because as we know, a lot of people, when you're doing a search, what is the best leather wallet for jeans that doesn't turn them blue? I don't know, whatever. If it's them picking up and it's comparing brands and you have that on the website, it can easily grab that data and just show that, as well as to make a better buying decision, in that discovery phase. So those are really some big points. And then obviously building out and tracking the prompts. So in terms of like what do we want to be tracking the client for? Because trying to rank on ChatGPT for like best wallets, you're like, all right, yeah, good luck. But if it's like best wallets that don't stain your jeans blue, great. All right, awesome. If that's what the client wants to be known for, that's their unique selling point of their particular product. Fantastic. Let's dominate all the search terms around that particular thing and create a load of content that touches on all of those different points as well. As so it's great. It's now a two-pronged approach. It's for Google and it's also now for ChatGPT, which is great. So content is
Yeah.
even more important than ever.
And imagine that content overlaps, right? Like that same content that's going to work for search traffic makes sense still for AI overviews and LM chat responses. Yeah. That's what I
100%.
figured.
Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense. And then in terms of like traffic that you've seen, we've seen the rise of like ChatGPT traffic when we look at the traffic sources that are coming in, but Google's still dominant. Like organic
Yeah.
direct traffic is still very dominant. But have you seen a lot of rise in after doing these kind of implementations of this types of content to try to influence LLMs? Have you guys seen a rise in traffic, like referral type traffic from ChatGPT and other LLMs?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's still relatively small in
Yeah.
comparison.
Yep.
Like I remember I was saying before, one of our biggest clients, they're at over 100 mil in revenue. They do 32 mil from organic search, and they do $19,000 from AI search collectively. Right now, but obviously a year or so ago, that was like 1K, if that, at,
Yeah.
at that point. But some of our clients, I went through and checked the dashboards the other day. Like some of them are at like 8 grand a month, 10 grand a month, um, income coming from directly attributed to ChatGPT, which is super, super interesting. But a big thing that I've seen, especially in like the last 6 months or so, is the conversion rate has come way down in comparison to what it was. So before
From
there was like,
ChatGPT and other LLM traffic, conversion rates going
yes.
down? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it was at the point where it was consistently across the board for a lot of our clients at around like 30-ish% conversion rate, which was nuts. And now it's kind of come back down to the point of where it's very similar to organic search. And obviously that's different for every single brand. But it's really, really interesting to see how that has come down over time. Yeah, with that, just an interesting observation there.
Yeah, definitely. Curious though, which thoughts, like if you're a e-com brand, marketing manager or owner of an e-com brand, like what's some things you think that they should look out for when like seeking and trying to find an SEO agency today?
Great question. Track record. Are they actually doing things correctly? I think that was a really eye opening side of things when we started to do some secret shopping around other agencies. Like I was just shocked by especially the backlinks that they were building. I'm like, holy shit, you're actually using PBNs. A PBN is a private blog network. So essentially the agency or someone they know owns a giant network of like manufactured websites
Hmm.
that have intrinsic power behind them. But like Google actively goes after PBN networks, and as soon as it finds them, they'll just de-index the whole thing. So if you have a website that's compounded over time with a bunch of links, but they're all PBN links, all of a sudden it's like cutting all the legs off your chair. Like that
Yeah.
site is going to tank. And I was just shocked. I'm like, God, we'd never do this on our own brands, let alone a client's
Yeah.
site. So that is a huge red flag, but it's very difficult to know unless you know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and I think that looking at the founders, have they previously done SEO, or have they just gone, "Ooh, this looks like a great business model," which is not for SEO, I'll tell you that. But yeah, like we've been doing it for 19, 20 years
Yeah.
and then built the agency
I was gonna
versus
say, like, you have
the
a
other way
proven
around.
track record just like all the other businesses that you did SEO for, which I've known a lot of SEO agencies, and I'm pretty sure most of them have not built out their own sites and generated
Yeah.
their own SEO. They just built an SEO agency. But it's hard to differentiate that or like really know
Mm,
that and dig into, have they really built anything on their own? It's kind of like somebody who
yeah.
starts a business advice consulting business, but has
Right.
never built and
Life
exited a
coach
business, like
who's
a
20.
life coach that has no successful history of doing anything.
Yeah.
I think you can get a lot of that, and it's just the nature of the marketing industry in general because there is no barrier to entry. There's no certification you have to get. There's nothing, no credentials you have to have, and it's a service based business, so you can essentially start it for $0. So
Mm,
anybody can really start, an SEO agency and a paid media agency for that as well, and we've seen it happen over and over again
mm.
which, always welcoming new players to the space to figure it out and people being ambitious and trying
Yeah.
to start businesses. But
It's like,
there's a
good
big
luck.
difference in terms of the outcome
Yeah.
for
Oh, yeah.
brands and clients. And then I think the downside of that really is brands get a bad taste about agencies because of that.
Mm,
Is they get burned by an agency, but it's generally from somebody who's selling something that they can't deliver on. To me, like the foundation of our business is always built on trust and relationships, is that I'm going to deliver whatever I say that I'm going to deliver on, regardless of what it takes us to do that.
yeah, absolutely. And something I used to say in sales calls was, aside from my team, there's only one other person in the world who I would trust to do my SEO right, and he doesn't have an agency. So it's like, there's a small pool, that's for sure. But
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. What are you kind of looking forward to over the next coming years? Is it kind of developing new models around SEO? Is it building new brands, your own ecom brands, doing any more of that, or just growing your main agency?
Yeah, I am really, really interested where things are going from like a discovery point of view, especially the likes of ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot, Gemini, whatever anyone's using, is like that's like the new frontier. That's like the new SEO. Obviously, it's so small in comparison in terms of revenue right now, but the rate that things are growing with it, it's like we need to jump on this now to then, really, really lead the market at that point when it's bigger. It might be 6 months, 2 years, whatever it might be. So that's a really, really interesting area we're putting so much time into right now. Is like, how can we, how can we rank on ChatGPT? I know it's using like SEO terms, but how can we get more traffic and more sales directly from ChatGPT without paying for it on ChatGPT? Because obviously the ads are going to come in at some point. So
They just announced just a month or 2 months ago that ChatGPT is going to have ads coming up, and it's in a
yeah,
private closed beta right now. We're kinda
yeah, I
chomping at
saw
the bit
that.
waiting for them to open that up and make it a self-serve platform because that's what we kinda specialize and
Yeah,
focus on, is that we can buy any digital property, we can target and deliver. If they sell ads on that property, like, we can deliver and target any property online, any web app, social media site, TV, audio, pretty much any platform. So, we're waiting for them to release and open that up. But
that's
yeah,
going to be
they are
very
in the
interesting.
process of testing that right now.
Yeah, because I see. Yeah, they've kept it very, very closed off. I saw that Target had spent like 450 mil with them or something, and they were seeing
Yeah.
like very strong conversion rates.
Yeah.
So I was like, epic. So
Yeah,
I
at the
think,
end of the
yeah,
day, like
having the
our,
double prong.
my principle and philosophy towards media and traffic is you go where the people are. And
Yep.
if people are leaving, traditional search, Google search platforms to search for things and are going to chat, marketers, advertisers are going to try to meet them there at that point. And then it's our job to figure out how to stay in front of them and give them relevant, useful content and information that improves their life and gives them exactly what they need. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the point or purpose of marketing fundamentally is get in front of consumers where they are spending time.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's really the AI search side of things, and obviously just growing the agency with clients we really enjoy working with. That's a really big part of it. And then Feel 30 as well, our online TRT clinic, like scaling that to high heavens has been really fun so far. Challenging, but fun.
Something I was going to ask you earlier when we're kind of going around like AI and impact on SEO and everything, but obviously, like you hear a lot of people talk about, like, you could go to for content wise. Is there a negative impact on your site or SEO if you're just using basically you're using prompts to get your content from an LLM and then using that as your content on your site to manufacture and create more content? Is that downgrading or affecting your search results, or does it not matter? Does that work? Like, can you use like AI generated content for your website content to improve your SEO?
Great question. Yeah, I think the answer is if you're just chucking things into ChatGPT, copying that 1,000 word article and slapping it on the website, then it might get indexed. Whether or not it's going to rank first for a specific keyword is another point on there. But the way that we see it is like Google just keeps flip flopping around of like if it accepts it or if it doesn't, and is it written by a real person, which they want at the end of the day. Um, we just don't want to take the risk, from
Yeah.
that point of view. Like,
Yeah.
why would we at this point? I'm sure that people have made it rank. But I mean, still need links and everything around that to really push and drive the authority. And also, there's been a lot of sites that have been penalized for just using straight ChatGPT content. So I don't know. It's the kind of wild west right now
Yeah.
with all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. But we don't
It's
want to take the
interesting.
risks.
I see it from like a content perspective. There's been some studies and reports that came out that there's basically AI blindness from consumers when they get some AI content. I'm sure there's some really, really good AI content out there that's engaging and people are watching. But there's some studies that shows like basically the second somebody knows this is just purely AI content, they just ignore it. They immediately they
Right.
skip it, they pass it by.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if the algorithms on search are going to do something similar. We also experience in like paid advertising, there's banner blindness. I kind of relate it to that. Once somebody sees a banner ad, they just kind of immediately know it's an ad. They ignore it, they tune it out.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if that kind of stuff is happening. Well, it seems to be happening in social media. And then is that also impacting, affecting search?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Google already uses, part of the algorithm is like bounce rate and dwell time. So, like why would Google serve a page if everyone stays on there for 3 seconds, realizes it's AI fluff and clicks back? It's
Yeah.
never going to rank first.
Yeah.
Versus an article that's like really well written, the layout, the typography, everything is on point. It's nice and easy to read, kind of takes you through a story as an example. Like if that had 2 minute dwell time on average versus 3 seconds, that page is going to rank a hell of a lot better for a lot longer time in comparison. So really our biggest challenge from a content point of view is how can we improve on the top 3 articles that are out there? Like Google's already telling us for this particular keyword, this is what we want you to rank for. This is the kind of content as well, and then it's a case of how do we improve it? How do we make it better? How can we add more research? How can we add more information and more useful information that would help keep a reader on the page for longer, essentially? Because if you can't do that, there's no point in writing content for research anyway at that
Yeah.
point.
Again, relevancy and, purpose, I think are still huge factors in search and online, in ads, in content marketing, and everything else that you want to give people relevant, useful content that has some meaning and purpose behind it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's kind of a truth that's always going to persist. Cool. Well, yeah, I'd love to know if you give yourself one piece of advice, your younger self, one piece of advice, what would that advice have been earlier in your career?
Ooh, what would that advice been earlier on in my career? I think probably take more risks. Probably be the biggest thing. Yeah.
Man, I feel like that's shocking. You seem like you took so much risks early on. You built so many businesses and like, boom, flip it, sell it, exit, start a new one. But I guess is that from a standpoint of like you knew SEO was going to work and maybe you could have just doubled down and invested more into it and scaled it up even bigger than what you did?
I think if I knew what I know now, I would have scaled up massively more. I would have put every single penny that I had
Got it. Yeah.
back into SEO as opposed to exiting brands and taking the cash offline, investing
Mhm.
in like cars or property, as an example. Because when I look at the gains and the returns that we've had from websites and brands, um, it's blown everything else out the water.
Mm.
I think that's the biggest thing is take a little bit more risk with that, um, and build out a lot bigger, or get investment and just freaking blow it out the water. Like in hindsight, I should have built a giant team around the brands that were clearly freaking working, and going, okay, could we duplicate this and build another one, and or could we also then build other brands and scale out from there? Because the great thing that we kind of started that we got to the point of was like we had a shared team across 40 or so different brands that we own. So essentially at that point, it's, people can move in and out because they have one skill and all of the brands need the same skill. So they could kind of go in and out of each site. So that was super, super efficient. But I wish that we'd 100x
Yeah.
what we'd
Got
done
it.
there. But
The way you explained that makes so much sense that I've heard is that like double down on the thing you know that's working rather than diversifying. Like
yeah,
if you know something is going to scale and is already working, has proven its success, like why would you take that and then put it toward a diversification, which lowers
yeah,
your risk, but isn't going to get nearly as close to the return versus something
no,
you know is working?
that's it. Yeah, yeah. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. What about you? What is your answer to that? Has anyone ever asked you back?
Yeah. I've thought about a few things. A big one is like early mistakes, like don't sweat it, just move on because it's a blip on the radar over the long
Mm,
term. So, like, I remember making mistakes and errors early on in my career and just like killing myself over it and
mm,
just being miserable about it. And really, people forget about it in like 6 months.
yeah,
And then it's like,
right.
after that, like, it doesn't matter like at all. That and like, similar type of answer to you. I wish I just doubled down on what I was already doing rather than I like started an own agency early on and wish I just doubled down and go all in on that because I kept
Mm,
trying to create other businesses and do other things that I wasn't a specialist in, I didn't know enough about,
the entrepreneur
and none of
curse.
them worked out. And it was like the
Yeah.
one thing I was already doing full time was working and
Mm,
it ended up working. And so like I would just wasted so much time and money and energy trying other things that never
yeah,
worked.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. That's why you keep learning and growing that way. But that's why I'm
Absolutely.
always curious what people are gonna say with that question. But
Excellent.
yeah, right on. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it for today. But I appreciate you taking the time and hopping on the call. Anything that you want to share, like kind of how to work with you or how to connect with you?
Yeah, thank you, James. I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. If you wanna work with us, fill out our application. You need to qualify to hop on a call with us, but it's just dtcseoagency.com. Obviously, we rank very well for DTC SEO agency as a keyword. Or find me online, Thomas M.R. Phillips. Some people say Mr. Phillips in the middle, but it's, yeah, my middle name. So Thomas M.R. Phillips, pretty much on all social platforms. Shoot me a message and have a chit chat. Go from there.
Right on. Awesome. Thanks so much, Thomas.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it.